Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another podcast. Well, I say welcome back to another podcast. I don't know if this is going to be episode 1 or episode like 2 or 3 because I've recorded a couple of these now. I don't even have a name for it. I was thinking the Astronomican as a name because it is the center of everything in the Imperium, and maybe this is the center of everything of the Imperium. Maybe that's a bit too big-headed from me, but I'm with Boman Modine here, and we're going to be talking about 40k. Do you want to introduce yourself to everyone who's listening?
Yeah. My name is Boman Modine, and I'm a writer and director. And personally, I think that Astronomican's a great name. Hopefully, it does. Hopefully, this does become the center of the 40k universe.
I am the new emperor confirmed. Bow down.
There
we go. So you've been involved in some 40k stuff.
Yep.
I'm sure people probably won't. I don't mean this in a bad way, but you've
No.
maybe have slid under the radar a little bit. But you've been involved in some massive 40k things that have gone kind of viral.
Well, thank you.
On YouTube, I would say. One of them was working with Richard Bolan, and he made the Imperial Guard. I say little fan film. I thought it was absolutely incredible.
Oh,
Everything that went along with that, and that was the first time I actually heard your name in the circles. Like, oh my god, this guy, he's a huge 40k fan. I didn't know, and then we got to talking. I was like, oh, this is so cool. So, how did you actually get started on that project? Was it just something you stumbled across?
Sure. Well, no, I mean, so I've been a filmmaker here in Los Angeles since 2012. And I mean, I think like a lot of people who are on YouTube, fan base of Warhammer 40k have always wanted content, right? I mean, it's such a rich universe. It's such a fantastic place to tell stories. And it's it's grimdark, so it's also harder edged. And I think that as mainstream has kind of gone a little softer with the Marvel stories, Star Wars, Star Trek. I think people want a little bit more grittiness, and so when I started working for a production company that was looking for unique IP to go after, the first thing I said was, we've got to at least try to go after Games Workshop's Warhammer 40k. I didn't tell them that I'd been playing since I was about 11, or anything, but like I definitely like planted the seeds. And and that started a really long process that I know that many people in the industry have walked before, which trying to figure out how to get permission, how to even knock on the door. And I think that it's because I have loved Warhammer so much. I feel like I've been part of the community, deeply ingrained in the community. I feel like I speak the language, and I knew with Games Workshop that you kind of have to show them what could be. You can't just pitch. Anybody can pitch, but like if you actually show them what could be the future, they're much more open to it. So I had initially, I worked with a couple of Black Library writers. I reached out to them again. Kind of came up with a story idea, and actually flew out to Nottingham to kind of like pay homage as well, as well as make an offering. Without going into too many details, again, I kind of fell back on this. I need to show what my plan is. And so I reached out. I went to, at the time there weren't that many fan filmmakers. And Richard, I believe, was on his third to last episode for Hell's Reach. And I reached out to him, as well as a couple other guys, but Richard was the one that kind of answered the phone and said, hey, I come from live action. So all of my, everything in my imagination always goes to, casting real people, making real props. And I asked him if he wanted to kind of join forces on this script that I wrote called Guardsman. Initially, we had planned to co-direct, but because of the nature of the internet and the way that he was on a wave when it comes to Hell's Reach and stuff like that. We both decided that I would basically produce, write, and be second unit director, so that we could kind of strategically like catch a lot of his of that wave, and I think it worked. But we were pretty solid business kind of a creative and business partners on that project. We also reached out to kind of one of the big cosplayers. I mean, he's huge now, but
Terry. Is it Terry you're talking about?
Oh yeah, Terry.
Yeah, he's actually a good friend of mine, Terry. Again, I got friends with him through the Guardsman project and stuff, and he actually designed my Chapter Master helmet as well, which is
right.
Awesome of him. Yeah, he's probably one of the, if not the best, like cosplaying like creators I've ever seen. Like I've done like web chats with him before, and he just sits there in his garage, and he's got like an armory on his back
got
wall,
that Terminator,
and everything like that. I'm like, I would literally kill to have something like that in like my house, just walking. It'd be so good.
Yeah, just a note about Terry. I mean, he is an incredible cosplayer. I mean, the guy is like a living genius. When it comes to how to put things together to make it. I mean, his hands work. His those are leg extensions that he's built. And but what I really want to like really stress about Terry is that the guy is a tank when it comes to performance. First of all, he can't see in that suit. Like he's looking out of basically a pinhole.
Yeah.
And he just take after take after take. He performed. I mean, we have so much footage of him doing stuff in that Angels of Vengeance Space Marine suit. It's just incredible. And I mean, he's mostly. It is a wonder he didn't step on the actor that plays the Guardsman. That he didn't just run him right over. And plus, he's fighting imaginary. I mean, those Tyranids aren't real, obviously.
Yeah.
He's so he's exactly. So he's just. I mean, he is just. Nothing would have worked without him.
He was telling me a story, like, because it was like, was it shot in like California, if I'm not mistaken, and it was like the warehouse was like super hot, and he was sweating, and it was just like the heat in there, and of course he's got that suit and stuff, and I think he said like, I think it was that suit he built some fans in, or was it something else? But they weren't working, or maybe never got them done on time. It was just like it was like a really like hard thing to do, but he like loved every second of it. It was just an awesome experience. He said to me.
Yeah, no, he. So my wife shot it, and
awesome.
Eric was a friend of a friend. He played Eric Steffens. He played the Guardsman Reigns, and Graham McNeil. He who relocated out here to Los Angeles. He's a friend of mine. I mean, it was really like a kind of a family affair. Really, I mean, Richard, kind of flew out from Quebec, and I kind of just plugged him in with my network of people here. It was great, and then of course we took this short and threw it on the internet. It I think it gained a lot of popularity.
I think it went very. I think if I remember right, it was the first like Warhammer animation from fans that broke over 1 million views. If I recall correctly, so it was like it was like a very, very big thing in the community itself. Like I remember when it went live, and like my inbox was just full. Hey Valrak, have you seen this? Have you seen this? It was just like bang, 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 like all my social media accounts. So that's when I know like something's like very impactful. Like when I just get a ton of messages. So yeah. I watched it. I thought it was great. I absolutely loved it. I've always said like if it was to do like a real life something to do with 40K, I think it would have to be from like that Guardsman viewpoint, because yes, Space Marines are cool and everything, but I think to capture that emotion of the story, I think it has to be through normal human eyes and that kind of emotion that it brings to the screen. So I loved it. I thought it was awesome.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's but what the point of the whole idea behind the execution of this was to, and one of the reasons why I was more strategic about how the project would go is to knock on the door of Games Workshop. Like, so that's the
Yeah.
whole. That was the whole point of it, and it kind of did, we, and a couple months later, we basically got to start talking directly to Games Workshop, which had happened before, through my connections in kind of like the Hollywood side of things. But this made it seem a little bit more organic, a little bit more. It felt a lot better, right? Like we had something to show, rather than just kind of pitching all the time.
Yeah, like this is what we can do, kind of thing. Because like when Richard did his Hell's Reach, I think that was kind of like the door being slung open, not just to GW, but I think for the community as a whole. Because I'm not saying like the other animators out there did bad work or anything, but I'm saying like I think his one had such an impact because it was like from the official audiobook. And people connected with the audiobook and the voice actors and everything like that. And like once that happened, and then the Guardsman film happened, and then Astartes appeared on the scene, and I think now we're at a point now where it's just exploded. Like there's so many fan animations now like coming out where people just it's giving confidence to say, do you know what, I want to tell my own story. And again, I think it's great. But like you were saying, the Guardsman thing and the other stuff has led now to a GW project.
Angels of Death, which is we've kind of been really, of course COVID has changed the fabric of what 2020 was supposed to be. But yeah, we've been working on that, and we've been releasing stuff as we can, when we can, and we're working very closely with the guys over at Games Workshop and Storyforge, which is their, while we've been working with them, it's kind of this new entity, very much like Black Library, and obviously they've got a ton of other animation projects that are in the works.
They've got they've got the well, I say it's not an animation, but there's talks of the Eisenhorn one, which is moving forward at a slow pace. And there's like this noir one, I think. I'm not sure if that's an Inquisitor or it's some. I think it's like an Inquisitor's retinue.
Hammer and Bolter, right?
Hammer and Bolter stuff. Yeah, and that's going to be like exploring different parts. I think there was something on Netflix that was like that. I forgot the name of it now. Was it called something Robot or something?
And, Love, Death, and Robots.
That was it. And it explored like different bits of animation and stories and stuff. And I thought, oh, that's great. So if they can apply that to like the 40K sense, maybe do different stories.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, as much as I have my film career, right? And I am a filmmaker by trade, but at the end of the day, I'm a Warhammer 40K fan in the strict, like I'm looking around my room right now, and all of my books are Warhammer 40K, and there's miniatures all over my office, and any content coming out of either fan filmmakers or the official source, like all of it just plays to the same kind of desire to want to see, kind of like, it's like when you're playing a game, right? And something really awesome happens, your brain naturally starts imagining what that would be like. And when the filmmakers, either official or fan based, make something, all it's doing, I think, is just taking your imagination and throwing it on a screen and allowing you to kind of like live your fantasy of your own tabletop games, Uh-oh, did I lose you?
Can you hear me? Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm back. I'm sorry about that. I must have muted my microphone while I was trying to respond. So yeah, I understand that viewpoint that you just said, because I've been a huge 40K fan in my entire life, and it's the stories and everything that's attached to that really brings out the fandom. Not for me, but I'm sure for everyone. Everyone has their own factions and stuff. As I just said, Space Marines is me. And where did you start with yours? Were you a Space Marine fan from the start, or was it like another faction? I actually started with Orcs in the beginning. That's because I actually didn't know it came in like humans. I just got like a box set bought for me. I was like, oh, these are little cool creatures. And then my friend's mother went to another shop and bought him some Space Marines, and he brought them around to me, and I was like, oh my god, they come in human format? This is amazing. So then, I went back, and then I got the humans, and that's when the road started for me, for like being dedicated to the Imperium.
Right. Geez. Okay, so I think I was technically, I think I was about 10 years old, maybe even 9, and I
Mm.
was in a like a drugstore in New York City.
Yeah,
And do you remember the game Battle Masters?
I do not. No, no,
Yeah, it was
nope.
like this. It was a game licensed by Games Workshop.
Okay.
Uh, not technically Warhammer, but I mean it had, or like one side played as like beastmen and orcs and goblins, and
All
the
right.
leader was a giant like ogre thing, and then you went up against what I would basically almost the exact same miniatures that used to be in the old Empire line, but had cannons
Yeah.
and everything. So that was like, and you played on this giant mat that was cut up into hexagons, and I must I mean I didn't really have very many people to play with, because it's hard to convince, especially back then, hard to convince people like, here, sit down and play with these little miniatures with me.
Mm.
But I loved it. I played. I used to just play against myself, or I'd force my sister to pretend to be
You be them guys, I'll be these guys. Yeah, I'd like
yeah, exactly.
like with me when I got the models, I didn't really play the game because I didn't understand
Right.
I was young as well. I used to collect the models because I used to love collecting models, and my friend did. We just used to like build them like a. I used to. I'm not sure if they had them in the States. I'm sure, and I'm sure they did. Is like model planes, like Spitfires, like old World War II planes and stuff,
Oh
and like
yeah,
Lancaster
yeah.
bombers. I was really big into that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah, no, I played with the I forget what company did it, but the really high detailed Star Wars X-wing, Y-wing, Tie
oh,
Fighter.
nice.
I've always been interested in miniatures. Like that's always been a passion of
Yeah,
mine.
yeah, definitely. I completely understand that. Yeah, that
I
sounds.
guess Lego, yeah, like all the way back to Legos. When I was really little.
Hmm.
But I guess to answer your question, it wasn't until I was in a train shop in Massachusetts, and I randomly saw 2 boxes. One of night goblins with bows and spears,
Hmm.
and the Bretonnian Knights, back when you could get 2
Oh,
Bretonnian Knights.
oh,
Yeah,
Bretonnians, my love
uh,
as a child. Bretonnians, my favorite
exactly,
faction in fantasy, hands down. I just love like
hands
those
down.
knightly orders. The Green Knight model, still to this day, I think is one of the greatest fantasy models ever made.
It's
I love
amazing.
it.
It's an incredible model. Yeah, no, and from there, around that time, Games Workshop was releasing these like campaigns that you could do. So there was like a Bretonnian scenario against vampires. Do you remember that one?
Yes, I do remember that one. Yep, yep.
Yeah, and so I actually started in fantasy, and
I think a lot of people did
eventually
though. I think a lot of people started in fantasy and moved over to the sci-fi
I didn't.
element
I really didn't know that Warhammer 40,000 existed until a Games Workshop opened down the street from me,
right.
on 8th Street and Broadway, and then I saw the whole range of figures, and so to answer your question, the first love of Warhammer 40,000 for me was actually the Dark Angels. And I'm
Ooh.
talking like pre like they're just traders in green armor. Like
Wait,
before,
are you saying the traitors now? Then is this what you're trying to get
I
at?
mean, I don't even their most recent lore, War of Secrets and stuff like that. Like I don't even really know where
It's
their
just
loyalties
secrets.
lie.
That's
Or
that's all it is.
yeah,
It's
it's
just
just
secrets within secrets. Good old Dark Angels.
yeah, exactly. But there was a novel that I think it was called Dark Angel, where it takes place. It might have been a collection of short stories. I think 2002, but where they're interrogating this guy. I think his name was uh, oh God, I'm gonna forget his name. But they're interrogating this fallen
Mm.
that they've captured, and this chaplain is earning these black pearls that you get for getting a what is it? One of the traders
And
to
Unforgiven. The Unforgiven.
yeah,
Oh, the
yeah.
Fallen. Yeah.
I think yeah, and there was this great moment where the guy is like explaining, like, what are you talking about? Like, we were the loyalists on Caliban, and Lionel Johnson came out of nowhere and started attacking us.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love that sense of confusion that Warhammer 40,000 really does better than any other franchise. Just this notion of like you can't trust anything. You can't even trust what year it is.
Yeah, I think that's a cool thing as well, because there's always a discussion like, who's the bad person in 40k? And there's like, well, everyone is technically the bad guy in 40k. You just have different levels to it, but everyone, like, there's no outright good faction in Warhammer 40,000. Like, there's no really good guys, and I think that's one of the coolest things about the thing. It's like, okay, I'm on the side of the good guys. There's none of that at all. It's like everyone's doing their own thing, and things happen. Planets have to be completely destroyed, and it's just the way it is.
Yeah. No, I think that when you look at like all of the different factions and everything that they're kind of gunning for, the best part of this hobby has been able to sit down. Obviously, everybody's trying to figure out what's canonical, what's official, what's the real deal with everybody. But honestly, it comes from the theory, right? Like the suspect of why people did what they did, and then of course arguing and debating about it with your fellow hobbyists, trying to get to the bottom of like what is the truth, and I do think that it's one of the best. We talk about amongst the communities and the forums and everything. We talk about plot armor a lot, but I really do think that the Games Workshop's plot armor is that if you don't agree with something, or if you think that something happened differently, or if you think it's a conspiracy, all of it can exist simultaneously.
Yeah, it's one of them things where like the factions you follow. I've always seen it like sports teams in a way, especially from the Space Marines perspective. Like, we're all in this together, but at the end of the day, I have my own little faction within my faction, and if you say anything,
the Reclaimers of Dorm, right?
Yeah, there we go. Soon to be canon. I must add. Come on, GW. But yeah, it's so cool how like everything can happen. I just there's so many stories, and I think that is one of the coolest things about 40k. Like, there's so much happening. You know what's happening, but you really don't know what's happening because there's so much. There's so many different layers to it, and it's
what's a I mean, it's a galaxy, isn't it? Like
it's huge, yeah. And now half of it's been cut off now in like the latest lore, and there's even more uncertainty what's going on over there, even though stuff is still going on over there and everything like that. So it's even more.
Yeah, no, I think the best peek into that world, the Nihilist Imperium, has been Aaron Dembski Bowden's the spear. What was that? The Spears of the Emperor.
Spears of the Emperor. Yeah, he made that.
Yeah,
he made that. Well, I say he made that new chapter. They've always been there, but he brought life to it. Like, he added the personality to it, which was great.
Right, and not just, I mean, he also expanded like what the mentors do.
Yep.
There was also the Celestial Lions
in there. Yeah, definitely.
And he really, what I really hope that the future for our hobby is really entangling the relationships between the kind of the new setting, because it is a new setting, right?
I kind of see it now. It's like the Western and Eastern Roman empires now. It's kind of like split up, where even though they are Imperium, they're probably going to have their own rule sets over there. So it brings up a lot of cool politics that can really go on within the Imperium itself and the chapters over there and stuff.
And I do think that there's a little, I have my own hopes and aspirations of like, or at least my hope is that there are new characters that get born out of these factions and everything. As much as I respect like Ragnar Blackmane or I mean honestly any of the heroes of everybody's armies, but like what I'm really hoping for at this point is that let's see some kind of like new stories and new heroes that get born out of this age, because I think we're now in like Millennium 42, right?
Yeah,
like
I think well, in Dark Imperium, I think Gilliman says we don't really know what time we're in, because the Inquisition has erased so much. So that's why he's like basically made the historiators, I think they're called now, if I'm not mistaken, where they're going back and they're trying to gather as much information as possible and track what has gone on, which
is only just another kind of like feather in Games Workshop's hat of like, it's whenever you want it to be, right? and with temporal rifts and the effects of the cicatrix maledictum on everything.
There's
like
even time travel in 40k. There was an orc that went back in time and killed himself because he wanted his own gun. He wanted two of them and stuff. So there's so much bizarre things that happen.
I remember in the first Heretic, there's also something where the reason why it wasn't the Chaos Gods that scattered the Primarchs. It was or maybe it was for the first Heretic. But these the first Space Marines to become possessed, I think, travel back in time and are in the laboratories. But by the way, like, and I've had some choice conversations with some of the people that are the people that write the books and the lore and everything, and it all comes down to, really, it's whatever you want. I mean, as much as one author might contribute to Black Library, and it gets adopted and the fans fall in love, 10 years later they can retcon it, and their universe is perfectly set up to be able to withstand a retcon. People might not like it initially, but like the original story, from what I was told by the long beards, or the long fangs of my comic book store as a kid, had nothing to do with the warp coming in and scattering the Primarchs. It was actually a group of human. It might have even been Mechanicum, like terrorists that were trying to stop the Emperor from being able to expand his influence. And so the lore there's enough room for everybody.
I think with the success of the Horus Heresy, I think that changed the tracks somewhat, because of course Primarchs and everything that like I think the Horus Heresy was only supposed to be 3 books. It's supposed to be Horus Rising, is it False Gods and Galaxy in Flames, and because it was such a success, like they all went to like the New York bestsellers and exploded, and they were like, okay, we can make a series out of this, and the series has exploded. It made its own game over on Forge World, the Horus Heresy series game and stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely. So, and I think it's funny though. It's so interesting. Whenever some of me and my guys have sat down and we talk about what could be the next thing that we make, or what other fan films are there and everything. There's I have almost a reverence for the Horus Heresy, and almost like I don't want to touch it yet. Like, the story's not done.
Yeah, they're about to finish it now, because they're on the the Siege of Terror series. But I'm sure there's going to be even more. That they're going to go back and do more, like novellas and stuff like that, because that always tends, because there's so many stories that have yet to been told in that era. We just followed like the main story path.
I mean, I think you and everybody else wants to see some kind of unification wars.
Yes, I was actually going to mention that next. Yeah, like the unification wars. Like we've kind of touched it now with. I don't know if you've read the new Valdor book at all.
I have.
Yeah, but for those of you who are listening, I don't want to go into too many spoilers just in case. But at the end, that is like at the end of the Unification Wars, and as soon as I finished that book, I was like, "Why? I want more of this now."
Yep.
I want to go before this book now and see it all.
Yeah,
it's like,
well, it took, what was it? The Crusade, the Emperor's Crusade took what, 200 years, something like that.
Yeah, I think it's yeah.
But to conquer Terra, it took just either just as much time or up to like 500 years, right?
It was insane. Like some of the stuff on there, like in the Horus Heresy, board game books, like the big black books that they have, they sometimes mention some of the legions that took part in the Unification Wars, and I think it's something like 30,000 salamanders died in one day, like trying to take on like one barbarian lord, because some of the technology he had was just so incredibly like earth-shattering and so scary. The emperor had to the emperor himself had to lock it away because it was just so bad. So it's like some of the stuff and like the wars that could have gone on there and all the stuff with it. It sounds an incredible thing, and I would absolutely love if they did a series there. I think Dan Abnett did say he would like to write there. So hopefully, fingers crossed that GW. Oh, I say GW. Black Library one day.
Yeah, I mean, but what's interesting about that, and why I think we haven't seen very many fan films of that era, is that it almost feels like history. right?
Yeah.
Like 40,000 is like anything can happen. You know, you can have any series of events kind of take place, and it's almost like contained, right?
Yeah.
With underneath the umbrella. But when you talk about 30K, it's like that's where we start getting we get feelings of like, oh no, that's a fact. Like the reason why 40,000 is the way that it is because one guy did something back in the 30,000 books. You know, like especially when they talk about the first Black Templars. You know, like and how that connects now to the Abaddon series, or the Black Legion series. You know, and how the 30,000 universe feels concrete and like history, and how you can't really speculate as much. And there's exactly.
And the unification, the unification is such a mystery. Like I think that's what it is now. But I remember when the Horus Heresy was like that at one stage. It was such a mystery. It was like Horus, and I remember when I first read about Horus, and I was like, "Oh, Horus! What he went against the Emperor? What, his son?" I was like, "Oh my God, this is incredible!" I said to myself, I would love to have something then, and I would never would have thought like back then when I first read that we'd have something as we do now. So maybe just maybe, but I do think like the next series of like big books from Games Workshop itself is probably going to be the Scouring, just following, you know, the Horus Heresy, where the Loyalists start taking back and start pushing the forces of chaos back then, because then you start exploring stuff like the legions, or the trait legions turning on themselves and being pushed back into the iron stuff. So maybe that can make some good stories and everything like that.
You know, it's funny. I do think that there is going to be a big push for it's because it's called the Scourging, right?
The Scouring is called the Scouring.
Scouring, excuse me. Yeah, that might be my Americanness popping up. But you know, the thing that my pet project that I want so badly to pursue is actually the Age of Apostasy. And specifically when you had the age of Two Terras and Nova Terra, because if there's almost nothing known about that time period, except like you get one entry in the Dark Angels Ravenwing Codex where they talk about how this Council stood in opposition to Terra, and that it was as a result of like basically like the Imperium turning into the Imperium of what we know today, because it's around I think 35 to 37,000 years, or excuse me, millennium. But you've got the rise of the ecclesiarchy, and it's almost like Nova Terra becomes this refuge. I mean, talk about a Western Roman Empire, Eastern Orthodox Empire. Like you have this, you have the perfect stage for that, like the last holdout of what the emperor really wanted for his imperium, of people trying to push the boundaries of science and reject religion against the ecclesiarchy, which is the embodiment of the embodiment of what the imperium eventually becomes. Skulls everywhere, and
Gothic and cherubs and stuff like that, I like to call them.
Yes. So I feel like you have this really great opportunity for also like a kind of like a new range of models, which I've been experimenting, like trying to do these industrial sci-fi looking characters who believe in the emperor, right, and believe in the imperial truth, right, struggling in the, and by the way, I mean the Segmentum Pacificus is where all of Dan Abnett's stories eventually take place. All of the Gaunt's Ghost stuff. So,
he loves it over there. That actually is where I've based the Reclaimers of Dawn, just in case Dan wants to pick them up at one point. It's like, hey Dan, they are over here. That is where the chapter home
strategic
is.
Of you.
Yeah, it is very. Two steps ahead.
Yeah, no, that's very. Yeah, no, I mean, like, but I think that, you tie that with a lot of other examples. The Iron Hands, when they had their civil war, it led to the Mechanicum having a civil war with, I think it's the Moira Schism.
Well, they actually did do a big series, like, before the Age, and that was The Beast Arises. And that was only mentioned a little bit. And they actually did that series as a book series, so I wouldn't be surprised if they, if maybe like these other big events that happened before war, because there's a lot of stuff that happened, as you mentioned, before where we are now. Like there was Horus Heresy, there was 10,000 years of events, and we don't even know about them. We literally don't know anything about them at all. As I just mentioned, like the Beast Arises series, that was, I think it was a 12-part book series. Yeah, I think it was, because it was a book every month.
Yeah.
And that really opened my eyes, because I was like, okay.
No, the birth of the Death Watch, right?
Yeah, the birth of the Death Watch, everything. I actually heard an interesting rumor about that, and that it wasn't really supposed to be the Death Watch. It was supposed to be the Men of Iron. They were going to reactivate the Men of Iron to take on the Orcs, but since the Death Watch book was coming out around that time, for marketing reasons, they changed it to forming the Death Watch and using them.
You know what?
instead.
I'm personally really happy that they did that, because I feel like the Death Watch. I mean, originally, again, going into kind of a retcon, the Death Watch, I believe, one of the origin stories of that was that it was. The Inquisition basically created them and kind of demanded that like all of the Space Marine chapters like contribute to this new chapter that would exist. But it always felt like it needed like a really good like start event. And I think the Beast Arises is a perfect example, because what the Beast Arises takes place in 35K, end of 34K, right? I think so.
Yeah, and something around that.
And you've got
I think it was 32. Was it 31 or 32? It was only a couple of thousand years after the Beast Arises. Yeah, sorry, after the Horus Heresy, because there's been some talk because there's some characters that appeared in the Horus Heresy that were there during the Beast Arises. So
you're right. No, you're totally. Yeah. I think you're right. I think it's like 2,000 years. Yeah, because they're talking about like the Imperium has just gotten back on its feet.
Yeah,
and then they get
like Chaos is not even like a mention. Like, oh, Chaos, right. No one knows. No one cares about it anymore. Right. That's one of the reasons why the Fists venture out, because they've been on the walls ever since, and they're like, well, we want to prove our worth, kind of thing. So yeah.
Right. No, I mean, look, I again, like you've got 10,000 or more years of lore to fill out, and I think that there's room for just about everything. And I'm glad when it comes to the Men of Iron, there are some things that I want to stay a mystery. Like like I don't.
The Men of Iron, they were supposed to be like that's what brought like everything down in a way, the Civil War, like the war with them. So bringing them back, it would have been like, okay, this is. Yeah,
when they describe the Men of Iron, I mean, they say that like multiple races of the galaxy allied together to stop the Men of Iron.
Yeah,
and that's really the only time you ever hear like of something after the war in heaven, where like the galaxy was forced to kind of all of the species of the galaxy were forced to commit against a united foe. I love for me in my own headcanon, the Emperor, when they call him the weapon, I think that's or anathema. I think that's cool, and it's very esoteric, and it gets into this really interesting place. He could be a perpetual and everything. But in my own headcanon, my thoughts are that it goes back to the earlier like 1990s Rogue Trader kind of stories, that the Emperor is just the last member of the Men of Gold. He's this
stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And that the Men of Stone, because there's the Men of Iron, the Men of Stone, and the Men of Gold, and I believe that the Men of Stone. They are in that version of 40K history. The Men of Stone are actually what humanity is. That they are genetically modified humans that were designed by the Men of Gold to adapt really easily and really quickly to new environments all over the galaxy. So that the Men of Gold would eventually, they basically the Men of Stone would build the Men of Gold's empire, and then they would come in. There's
so many mad stuff from like the Rogue Trader eras and stuff connected to that. There's some great foundations on like it's evolved through time. I remember one story I read about a half Eldar librarian who joined the Ultramarines and stuff, and now every time like my Ultramarine friends step out of line, I have to.
You got to remind it.
Yeah, there we go. Look, harboring Xenos in your ranks and stuff.
Gilliman's not the first one to cross the wires.
Exactly, dude.
But I mean, I think it's. I'm glad they're also going forward though, because now I think that 30K is going to turn into its own well, 30K's already got its own game, right? Like it's got its own rule set
niche and stuff. You know, the people who, because there's some people that don't like playing 40K, but they love playing 30K. So you know, it's
right, exactly.
It's opened up a different market, which is great.
I do hope they expand. I know that Forge World, kind of slowed down a little bit on the 30K production line, but I do hope that they pick it back up. And I do want to see, like, I'm the guy that's really rooting for a Thunder Warriors, like, return. Like again, I'm peddling my own fan theories, but like for me, Belisarius Cawl went back, didn't invent the Primaris, but he went back and actually somehow figured out how to backwards engineer the Thunder Warriors and blend them with the Astartes. Like for me, and I love the Thunder. That story about Valdor and the depictions of the Thunder Warriors is just, I mean, I don't know what it is about them, but I find them so fascinating.
I love their armor. I don't know what it is, like the goggles and the plumes.
Yeah, it's like a weird blend of like gladiatorial armor and power
like
armor,
barbarian kind of look to it. It's so cool, and just like how they're described as being big and strong and stuff, and just monsters, and what was happening to him, like they're just going full on rage mode because
right
breaking down everything like that. It was just so cool, and I was like, I want more. And that's why I said I just want more stories around this era. You could really go into it and explore it more.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I mean, your handle's Chapter Master Valrak, and so there's no vagaries around where your love lies for Warhammer 40K, and I think that I think everybody loves Space Marines, but one of the things that I'd be bereft if I didn't mention this, but like I also absolutely, since 2001 in my Spanish class in high school, I have fallen in love deeply and eternally with the Tau.
Yeah, and we've had conversation in the past. Your love for the Tau,
yeah, and I know that there's a lot of hate for them on the internet, but I don't care. And I do really believe that it would be really in Games Workshop's best interest, and honestly the best interest of the fandom, to really explore all of the Xenos factions. Like I've been recently researching Eldar because me and my team have been working on a new fan project called the Exodite.
Yep.
And we're really, I delved deep into the Eldar lore, and there's just not that much there,
which is kind of surprising since they've been around for.
They're the original aliens.
Well, them and the Necrons, the war in heaven and everything like that, and everything that went down with them. It's like you would think they would have gotten more love by now. Like I've always looked at GW when it comes to models, not from like a lore standpoint, or a fan standpoint, from a business standpoint. They're there to make money, and Space Marines at the moment are the money ones. But that doesn't mean that. The Xenos don't deserve the love. Like the Necron range at the moment has just got like a massive refresh, which has been incredible. And I think there's still more to come, to be fair with it. But if they give that same love with like the Eldar, the Tau, the Tyranids, the Orcs as well, because we did get a little trailer a couple of months ago now, which did show something orky on the horizon. So fingers crossed that they get some more stuff.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think that right now, the narrative for the past couple of years. When did the Cicatrix Maledictum open? Like 2018, right?
Yeah, well, it dropped with 8th edition. Yeah, when 8th edition dropped, I think that was like 3 years ago now.
Right. And I have really loved the refocus that Chaos is the bad guy for the Imperium. Like it is the Imperium versus the forces of Chaos. Like, and I really like.
I'm humanity versus Chaos. Yeah.
But I don't think that there is in going into like other franchises. I think that the risk of making it just two guys slugging it out and everybody else kind of watching. Like why do it? Like there's plenty of room for it to be just like a giant melee of all these different factions. I mean, in Star Wars, it's light side versus dark side, but to my friends who are still into Star Wars, all they ever talk about is like, well, what about the gray side, and like, or whatever it's called, but like, Jedi who walk both paths and stuff. So I think everybody always wants multiple, wants basically a diversity of different factions to be able to get behind, and I mean, I feel like the Yannari really need lore and really need like their own model range. I who doesn't want to see the Dark Eldar with the hierarchy of the Dark City pouring out of the webway, right?
Yeah,
like
that'd be so cool. Yeah,
yeah,
and the amount of technology they have and the weapons and stuff, they could really, put a dent into the galaxy as well. For both sides, for everyone involved, it's not just let's go after the Imperium. They can they can go after anyone because they have that power.
And I think that what it comes down to is that like I think that there needs to be almost like there needs to be a reorganizing of objectives, right? Yeah. Like, so for the Indomitus Crusade, and it's kind of I always feel bad for my friends who love Gilliman, because one, they get shot at a bunch from the rest of the fandom, but also, well, it's also, you had like the launch of the Indomitus Crusade, and then we just fast forward 200 years and it's over.
Yeah, I think they're slowly trying to repair that though, because I remember when 8th edition dropped, and I was like, okay, the split across the galaxy, and with this Indominus Crusade, and it lasted 116 years, and it's over. And I was like, well, what happened? What happened? It's like you skipped over everything. And they made a couple of books. They did Dark Imperium, they did Plague Wars by Guy Haler. Belisarius Call is set after the Indominus events as well.
on Staffa, yeah.
And there's another one because Guy Haley was writing the trilogy dedicated to Gilliman, Dark Imperium, Plague Wars, and something else. And now they've gone back in time and they've restarted the Indominus Crusade, because I think they've understood that, and they may have made that error and everything that could have happened in between, and setting everything up now going forward. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with those books like Dark Imperium and Plague Wars and stuff. Are we going to get sort of retcons?
Well, I know that Guy Haley is also doing the Dawn of, he's part of the Dawn of Fire,
the Dawn of Fire stuff,
series, with I think it's Avenging Sun. Yeah, I mean, those are fantastic. And going back and like going through that age, yes, I'm very excited to find out what happened during the Indominus Crusade. But by and large, for the majority of the hobby, I think everybody is kind of like, okay, well, we're in Millennium 42 now, and what's going on, and and I think that if we're in the modern age, because very few of my friends, whenever we get to play games again in person, but when we do like store campaigns and stuff like that, we always want it to be like present, right? Like this is day, this is the exact date on the calendar, and we're not playing historical battles unless we're playing 30
games, like what's
right, exactly.
Right now,
Exactly. So when I see that, what the feeling that I get is all of the factions need to kind of get a new objective, right? Like it really worked with the Eye of Terror campaign, and then the subsequent, what is it? The Phoenix Rising books and stuff like that. But like, the Eldar really need, like, I think the Yannari provide the Eldar,
don't they? To like because
exactly.
I think at the moment, like from what I've been reading, they're just riding on the coattails of the Imperium, which it doesn't make sense for the Eldar. They're the ones who should be at the spear point. Yeah, you could probably argue there's not a lot of them around and stuff like that, and humanity's spread across the galaxy.
There's still millions.
There's still millions. Yeah, but they should. They have the technology, the mindset and the skill to be at the front of this.
Exactly, and plus they see the future, right?
Yeah.
So like,
Eldar, yeah. I think one of the things, like the Tau, what they're trying to do, because I think one of the downsides with the Tau is that they were just stuck in the corner, in their little thing. But now that they are doing the fifth sphere expansion, if I'm not mistaken. So they have popped out somewhat, so maybe they can grow from that and do something.
Valrak, and I do stress like your ability to edit this conversation, because this is the first. I'm about to jump deep in on some Tau lore with you, and I don't mind doing it. But in the case that I get too far, please
let's go down that. Let's go down this hole. I think everyone's bracing for it. Everyone, hang on, we're going down.
So I am of the mind that the Tau have been retconned a couple times, and in the last 2 decades that they've existed, and I think that originally when you look at the Battlefleet Gothic books, which really expanded Tau lore, the Tau have faster than light technology. The decision to make them trying to study the warp, but then also not have warp drives was just, I think it was a misstep, honestly, because yes, it does keep them in the corner. But even at the dawn of the faction, when Graham McNeil, for example, was writing those early entries that ended up in White Dwarf and stuff like that, the Tau their technology had really far-reaching effects, and there were always rumors of them showing up places. Like, for example, there were sightings of mercenaries that could be described as Tau offering their services to an imperial world that was under attack by Tyranids. There have been sightings of Tau mercenaries working with with heretical chaos factions. Which the thing is, you don't have to be, Games Work or Warhammer 40,000 doesn't suffer from the good guy bad guy problem.
Yeah.
Tau, who are relatively altruistic, and we'll get into that for a sec. But they can. There's no reason why Tau wouldn't work for Chaos Space Marines. I mean, Orcs work for Chaos Space Marines and vice versa. Why wouldn't Tau assist if there was some objective that they needed to? There's no reason why they couldn't. And
to progress them along. Yeah.
But their technology has been seen even on Necromunda, where Van Sar, for example, their weapon suits bear a startling resemblance to a lot of Tau technology, which makes people it's been speculated oh crap, maybe the Necromunda aristocracy has some kind. I think it's called the to the cold trade, which is illegal alien artifacts. So I have never thought that the Tau are painted in a corner, except in the subsequent events where the fourth sphere, which by the way, I'm as a traditionalist Tau fan, I object to the use of the term fourth sphere, because well, the thing is that a sphere of expansion is not like a fleet. It's not a Tyranid hive fleet.
Yeah.
It's an age. Just like how in the real world we have BC and AD, the Tau have different phases of expansion. So the first phase lasts for hundreds of years. The second phase is a little bit shorter, and then the third phase up until the fourth phase was the shortest one. But for me, the idea that the third age would never have ended, because Shadow Sun and the subsequent generations of commanders would have just been, it would keep expanding into the galaxy.
Right.
So the idea that the fourth phase expansion was a single fleet that then jumped into effectively the Cicatrix Maledictum is just kind of odd for me. And then to just then call the Shadow Sun's expedition into the into the wormhole to come out on the other side near, I think it's near Ball.
I think it's more to the north. Yeah, it's definitely. I think it's across the.
I think it's definitely in the Indomitus, or excuse me, the what's
the Great
called
Rift. Across the Great Rift.
Yeah,
I would say,
yeah, right. So for me, I'm going up against a lot of recent Tau converts, and who obviously you've been on the internet, there are people that can't stand the Tau, but I think my objective as a storyteller in my own publications and hopefully fan films, and hey, maybe one day, just like you, I'm hoping that Games Workshop taps me on the shoulder to make some canon. I would really love to show that the Tau can be grimdark, can be they have a place in the Warhammer 40,000 universe, but they can also be, effectively what the original designers talked about, which is like, what happens if the Star Trek Federation accidentally found itself in the Warhammer 40,000 universe? Like, how would it react to, the, and I think that's so fascinating. And there's nothing better than, whereas in the Imperium and the storylines of Space Marines, like, really the only thing that's going to get you is you fall to chaos, right? Like that's, look, it's cool. I'm never going to say that Space Marines aren't cool, but really the only thing that a Space Marine really runs the risk of over the course of his life is falling to chaos. Like, that's
like they live to die. That's all they're there for. They live to die. That's what they're bred for. That's their goal is to die. That's
exactly. That's my favorite quote. What is your duty? To serve the Emperor's will. What is the Emperor's will? That I fight and die. What is death? Death is my duty. Like, I get chills saying it right now. Like, if I was a different person, I'd have it tattooed on my back. But I think that when you really look at the Tau, what they're missing is a really like a very straightforward goal. And this goes into what we were talking about before with, like, all of the factions need a goal. I think the Necrons have a goal now. The Necrons' goal is
Silent King coming back and stuff. I think, like, I'm sure we'll get a lot of stories when, like, their codex drops and stuff, and the main goal for that. Like, I'll hold my hands up. Like, you're talking about the Tau now as an Imperial player, and even when I say Imperial player, I mean Space Marine, because there's so many inner factions within the Imperium.
Oh, you're right.
I don't really know that much about the Tau. Like what you were saying before, like how they were designed. Like they're just a faction that has, well, to me, has the technology, and they haven't done anything with it. Kind of, there's nothing. Like, what is their end goal? Like, it is an interesting thing to talk about.
Yeah, and I think that at the root of what attracts us to this hobby is the ability to speculate and then to take what Games Workshop gives us on an official basis and grow it and home grow it. So I think when it comes to all of the alien factions, they just need. Yes, new miniatures, totally awesome. I bought the Kroot model for the Blackstone Fortress adventure twice. I love
all those models in the Blackstone. Incredible.
But what I really want is a little bit of direction as to what my characters, when I play with my own armies or write my own fan fiction and things like that. I want my characters to have a unifying reason to be struggling in the universe that it is. If you're a Space Marine right now, I think you have a Space Marine player right now. I think you have this really novel feeling that, yes, I could fall to chaos, or I'm loyal to the Imperium, or wait, maybe I'm loyal to the old Imperium. That, like, Gilliman's new Imperium. Think about it. You've had 10,000 years of the Codex Astartes, right? Yep. We've only had 2,000 years of Christianity, right? Which So imagine a book, right? That's 10,000 years old, that people have lived and died. Like, if you create a new formation of Space Marines, like, other Space Marine chapters might come down on you for heresy against the Codex.
Yeah.
Right. Like.
Yeah, and I know what you mean, because I think they're kind of hinting at that now in potential future. Like, I think we actually have a goal for the Space Marine stuff. Like with Gilliman's return, like he puts up with all this nonsense, let's say, in the Imperium, because it serves a means to the end for now. But I can definitely see him, once a certain aspect has been dealt with. Okay, you followed this rule now, just like then, and I'm sure that may sound like a shock.
For me, again, I always want to stress that in my own headcanon, right? For me, you have the perfect storm of a triumph, the civil war of a triumvirate.
Yeah.
The Romans, when Caesar had to go up against Pompey, and I really do think what my hope is is that, and they might not do it. Who knows, right? But I think they kind of nipped it in that custodian book. I forget what it was called.
Yeah, there's I know which one you mean. There's
in the Shadow of the Throne or
the,
something.
The Regent's Shadow and
the Regent's Shadow.
The Watchers of the Throne. I think the first one's called. Yeah.
Right. Which, by the way, amazing books. Amazing books. But
amazing. Yeah.
But I feel like there was almost an opportunity where you had like. The majority of people that I know play Imperial factions because there's so many different Imperial factions. And justifying it lore-wise why, in a campaign or something, so many people are basically on the same side fighting each other. Like, it's always, for anybody that's ever run a campaign, it's sometimes pretty difficult. Like, well, why is the Imperial Guard fighting against Space Marines? The Imperial Guard, by and large, probably thinks the Space Marines are literally angels, right? Like, why would they do that, But so it's always a trick of the campaign master to explain why all the factions are against each other. But you have going back to that perfect storm. Imagine, if Guilliman took a stand and said, "My father is not a god," and anybody that says that he's a god is spitting on everything that he believed in. So almost like a return to the imperial truth. But again, you've had 10,000 years and countless billions of lives spent trying to prove the exact opposite. The Sisters of Battle, their faith is so strong that it now manifests in the forms of saints.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because I think it would be an incredible story, because it's the imperial religion, as I like to call it, is so intertwined in the Imperium now. It is the Imperium in a way.
Yep.
So
totally.
if you go to war with that, it's like who is on whose side? Like there's going to be different chapters that will pick.
Yep.
Go against
different inquisitors.
Inquisitors, everything.
You could have the Ecclesiarchy and the Senatorium Imperialis on one side, and you could have Guilliman on the other. And we know that there is division, right? Like in that Regent's Shadow book, they talk about how the Terra is being outshone by Macragge. That all of these these new administratum people are all from the realm of Ultramar, and they're educated and they're clean, and it's because the realm of Ultramar is a virtual paradise in compared to the rest of the Imperium. But the idea that the realm of Ultramar, Ultramar is outshining Terra. Like, well, geez, that sounds like Constantinople and Rome.
Yeah. It's incredible. Again, the potential of so many stories they can do with this is just
and of course, and of course, like I think that all the authors are kind of tackling this. In Spears of the Emperor, Aaron Dembski-Bowden really highlights the fact that the Spears of the Emperor think Guilliman is an abomination, and they're Primaris. So they're
Guilliman's sons as well, if I'm not mistaken. I think the spears are actually from his gene line, so it even makes it like a bigger story, his actual gene lineage is saying this.
If you look at Guilliman, the guy was brought back to life by Eldar magic.
Yeah.
We live in a monodominant, hyper orthodox society where even some people, even knowing about aliens might get you a death sentence. So the idea that the regent of the Imperium was woken back up from Eldar magic, I mean, that alone would cause a schism.
Yeah,
and
shake the foundation,
and you marry that to his opinion, like the idea that, and I've heard this on some of the forums, he made the strategic move of not alienating the Ecclesiarchy, and it's okay, but I live in Warhammer 40,000. People do all sorts of things to. They die on hills that in the real world seem ridiculous. Talk about Rogel Dorn. Rogel Dorn disagreed with Guilliman in regards to the Codex Astartes being implemented, and one of his battle, I think it was a strike cruiser or a battle bards, gets shot down as a result of that argument.
There's nearly another civil war over it.
Exactly. So over a piece, over a way of thinking is enough of a reason. Never, blast the consequences. This is what I believe in. I'll go to war for anything.
It's incredible.
So what I really think, what I'm really hoping for is that imperial civil war, because if you did it, if you follow that line of logic, then chaos is the barbarians.
Yeah, they're coming down from the north, let's say, and yeah.
Exactly. And you've got Ultramar as Rome, and you've got Terra as Constant, or maybe or vice versa. You know, what
it can work either way. That's a great thing. It can work either way. Like it's one of them.
And here it comes, Valrak. Then you have another Primarch waking up.
Oh boy!
Like Lionel Johnson.
Here we go.
And all of a sudden you have such a soup. You have a new age of strife. And now every Imperial faction can choose between 3 different ways of thinking. And you could, you think about the miniature customization, the brother, it's brother against brother, but instead of it being chaos, it's just different ways of the of being an Imperial. I get really like excited even just imagining the possibilities.
I'd say there's so much out there they can do now. I think we'll call it there because we've been talking for like an hour. I think that's a good thing to end on. People are like, okay, well, what else? I just want to say thank you for coming, mate. I really do appreciate it. It's been fantastic having you on, talking about all the stuff. I'm sure we'll do another one of these, and Alan, of course, I'm going to invite you back. Maybe some more people, part of your projects and stuff. We can talk about that a bit more.
Absolutely,
and stuff. But for everyone who's been listening, I want to say thank you for listening all the way through this podcast. I'm not sure if this is number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, but whatever it is, I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon. If you want to say bye to everyone, and that's it.
This is fantastic. Thank you for having me.
No worries, dude. Right, we'll call it there. See you now, everyone, and bye-bye.